Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first lecture for the Milton class. If you hear some squeaking, that's just the dog. I just want to give you a brief overview. We'll go into much more of the specifics. Oops, what did I hit? There we go. There we go. And so we'll go into some of the specifics, of course, of each work more extensively, but I just want to give you a good kind of overview of what's happening, the building block of this course, why this guy is so important, and so forth. So just to give you kind of general background. Milton was born December 9th, 1608, London, died 1674. So he's the son of composer John Milton Sr. and Sarah Jeffrey. So he graduated from Cambridge, studying religion and English, and of course religion is going to play a huge role throughout his life. He actually planned on becoming a priest, but actually turned it down and really pursued writing instead. He read both ancient and modern works of theology, philosophy, history, science, all that in preparation for his prospective career in poetry, and we'll see those influences throughout all the works that we're reading. He was highly educated. He was fluent in Latin, Greek, Hebrew, French, Spanish, and Italian. So we're going to, again, to understand Milton, you have to understand all the allusions and all the kind of literary, theological figures, philosophical ideas that he was playing upon, trying to prove upon, and so forth. So in Milton's time, and this is one of the aspects of why I wanted to put that one documentary in our page as well. So there's a huge split between the Church of England and then the Puritan or Presbyterian sects, right? So Milton was Presbyterian. This denomination called for the abolishment of bishops, part of the Catholic and Anglican churches, all that stuff. If you're familiar with the um, splits, but that throughout kind of Christians' history. So Milton, however, gradually took his views further, ultimately calling for the removal of all priests. So very, very radical idea there. So the English Civil War broke out during the time, and it was a huge time of strife. A lot of lives are lost, and particularly it was a huge battle between the Church of England and, of course, various reformist groups such as the Puritans, and then, of course, between the monarchy itself and Parliament. So there was a conflicting opposition to King Charles the First belief in the divine right of kings, and that's again a crucial kind of idea. If you've taken any medieval courses, again the divine right of kings, all the ideas that there's a huge spectrum, right? And everyone falls into place, right? Kings are better than peasants. There's the great chain of being, if you're familiar with that concept, all plays into these kind of rivalries at stake here. So the Puritans believed that the Church of England was corrupt and they sought to reform it. So Puritan citizens believed that they had the divine wisdom and were not tolerant of opposing views. In agreement, Milton actually advocated for the abolition of the Church of England and was greatly against King Charles I. So in his later years, Milton actually came to view all organized Christian churches, whether Anglican, Catholic, or Presbyterian, as an obstacle to true faith. And so that's kind of an important aspect of his kind of final religious philosophies. He felt that the individual and his conscience was more powerful tool interpreting the word of God and so forth than any kind of example set by a church. So again, very you could already see, if you're not familiar with Milton, kind of a lot of radical ideas. Milton married Mary Powell in 1642 and wished to divorce her due to her frequent absences and living with her mother and all that. But he could not do so under the laws of England. And so one of the things we'll read is his tract to pretty much defend divorce. So Milton and Powell's marriage lasted until 1652. Powell died while giving birth to the couple's third daughter. She was followed by the death of John and then their infant and only son. Milton remarried in 1656. He had his first wife, Woodcock, died from complications experienced while giving birth. Um, so this put significant strain, of course, on Milton. So you'll see we won't really study a lot of his individual poems, but that kind of does play into it. If you're very interested in Milton, especially his poetry, that plays into a lot of his later poems. So in terms of politics, and again going also into the First Civil War, Second Civil War, everything that is happening. So Milton wished to take up the arguments and pursue a reform of the English divorce laws. So Milton addressed political issues through writing a series of pamphlets calling for more leniency in the church's position on divorce. His argument brought him greater publicity and, of course, then angry criticism, right, from the religious establishment. So when the Second Civil War ended in 1648, with King Charles I throned and executed, Milton welcomed the new parliament and wrote pamphlets in its support. So after serving for a year, or a few years, in the civil position, he retired briefly to his house, and then his eyesight starts failing. And by 1652, he's completely blind. So this also, again, there's a really good poem on his blindness. That again, you see that personal biography, personal influence really shapes his writing as well as his education and his politics and everything. So Milton re-entered civil service under the protectorate of Oliver Cromwell, the military general who ruled the British Isles from 1653 to 1658. 2 years after Cromwell's death, the Restoration brought Charles II back to the throne, and the poet had to go into hiding to escape execution. But a lot of people were still on his side, and it's very interesting. He was able to navigate very well, even though he definitely had to hide for a bit. Nobody really wanted to kill the greatest poet alive, so he was in a kind of an interesting spot there. So through the addressing of politics, he championed the freedom of the individual due to his distrust of institutions. And this was accompanied by his belief that power corrupts human beings. He distrusted anyone who could claim power over anyone else and believed that rulers should have to prove their right to lead, right? Not God does not give any king the divine right. You actually have to prove that you are a good leader. So again, radical for the time, very controversial figure with his political ideas. In terms of the kind of general literature too that we'll read from him in this course, religion, of course, is a common subject, and it was, of course, a common theme and subject in any one writing. But he also addressed a lot of important different ideas, and he was really influenced. He was an avid reader, so he was influenced by other readers. Poetry was a popular literary form, and there was a great presence, from the works of the metaphysical poets like Andrew Marvell and so forth. So he's one of those artists who is influenced by everybody. He really has eclectic taste, and so that really shows in his writing that he is really just interested in a lot of different subjects, a lot of different areas. Milton wrote many of his works focusing on, of course, the nature of religion and what divinity means, right? He's most notably, of course, for the epic poem Paradise Lost, which we'll study, which focuses, of course, on the fall of man and continually really sparks debate regarding its theological themes, political commentary, and, of course, its depiction of Satan. I think that's his Eve and his Satan are probably the most discussed academically in terms of who's the hero, is one a tragic hero, is one an anti-hero, and so forth. So a lot of interesting kind of academic debates there. Milton also constructed a follow-up, Paradise Regained, which we are not reading, and it's not that interesting. It's okay, but definitely not as interesting as Paradise Lost. Milton had definitely a profound effect on later literature. If you really study the Romantics, we'll take a look at, of course, William Blake's illustrations when we talk about Paradise Lost. But he really has lasting effects, and of course, Mary Shelley takes a um, huge amount of ideas from Milton, especially Paradise Lost, and put them in her novel Frankenstein. There's a lot of they're talking about an academic debate whether Frankenstein is an adaptation or an appropriation of Paradise Lost. It's a very interesting kind of debate. It can be argued that the greatest influence was on, of course, as I said, the Romantic poets. So if you love that era, it's really good to kind of study him to see how the Romantic poets got to their ideas. He expanded, of course, the subject matter of the sonnet away from just love, which is crucial. And then, of course, looking at history and contemporary issues and all that. This helped the Romantics take even greater liberties with the sonnet, and then, of course, start inventing free verse and all sorts of important, like free form, every kind of experimental poetry you could think of. Like Milton, of course, the Romantics addressed wider issues such as politics, history, and religion, and that's all because Milton did it first. So this is again just a brief overview. There's a lot of historical context that if you're not aware of, we'll get into more and more as we read. But I just wanted to give you kind of a good overview of what's happening. Obviously, if you have questions, always email or text me or whatever. If not, just good luck with the semester and take care.